point of view. It's kind of the start of the series. And then we're going to continue these and continue to look at cannabis like an onion and unwrap it and try to figure out on all these levels what it can do. And there's amazing properties to this plant. So in any case, today we are very, very honored and delighted to have a speaker that is actually not only a practitioner of cannabis and its use, particularly in cooking and other things, but also she has started a company. And so launched her brand this past year. So we were so delighted to have Smita here to give us a talk on Ayurveda medicine and its applications with cannabis, as well as just a background on the entire topic. So thank you so much for coming, and I hope everyone enjoys this. Thanks so much.
All right, thanks everyone for being here. I'm really grateful for the opportunity. Thank you to the Borough of Red Bank for the opportunity to speak today. Our business partners here at Canopy Crossroad really appreciate this opportunity. As Andy just mentioned, my name is Smrita Chaube. I'm the founder and CEO of Veda Warrior, and I'm really excited to have a chat with you guys today about what is Ayurveda. How it falls into the broader pantheon of Eastern healing sciences, and what we can kind of rediscover today to optimize our everyday health and wellness. So before I get started, wanted to get a temperature check in the room. Like, how many of you guys have heard of Ayurveda before or are familiar at all? All right, we see a couple of hands, just the Canopy Crossroad team. So why don't we just start from the top here? So what is Ayurveda? So Ayurveda is the sister science of yoga. It is the world's oldest system of healing. It comes from ancient India. It's known to be over 5,000 years old. And it has had a very, very interesting history over the past millennia, so to speak. So once upon a time, Ayurveda used to be well known throughout the globe. Its wisdom was traded just as knowledge systems are traded today. You know, there's like, for example, the French are the excellent winemakers, so their winemaking knowledge is known throughout the world today. Well, similarly, in ancient times, the healing knowledge from the East was known throughout the world. It was traded around the world in well-known trade routes. And all over the world, we had all sorts of different indigenous systems of healing as well. So Ayurveda was one of them. It is known to be the sister science of yoga, as I said. If you look at ancient Indian healing philosophies, there's, roughly speaking, about three aspects of it that today are very relevant to us. So everyone in this room has heard of yoga already. We see yoga studios everywhere. That's one of the important Vedic healing sciences. You've all heard of meditation. Meditation is a very ancient Vedic healing practice. And when I say Vedic, the Vedic civilization was an ancient civilization that actually predated what is the modern Hindu civilization. So it was like the original knowledge before Hinduism even began. But, and the word Veda, it actually means science or system of knowledge. So for people like myself who were kind of born and raised in this lineage, we do not actually believe that this is a religion. We believe that these are scientific principles that allow us to understand healing from the perspective of mind, body, and spirit. And we believe that these are scientific principles that, you know, predate a lot of our modern civilizations. And in the beginning of the text, actually, it says, "We were told by those who know." So the ancient mythology and folklore of it really is that these ancient seers were given this information, and it's up to modern speculation on where they got this information from. You might say perhaps they had extraterrestrial contact, perhaps they were meditating and going into, you know, downloading different information. We don't really know, but suffice it to say, we have these ancient texts and books that are still left over that start with these mysterious words, "We were told by those who know." So that is Ayurveda. It is an ancient system of healing. And it's had a very varied history over the last many thousands of years. So as I said, once upon a time, it was known throughout the world and actually influenced many different healing systems, including Hippocrates from Greece, who talked about the four humors. They're very similar to the Ayurvedic energies, which I will talk about in a few slides from now. But over time, this information was systematically dismantled and kind of hidden away. And then, there came a time that actually this became forbidden science. It was outlawed altogether. In 1866, the British Empire decided to outlaw Ayurveda. And so this was not because there was a public health concern. It's not because they did a bunch of science and realized Ayurveda didn't work, but rather it was the opposite. They had a mission to subjugate India, right? That they were there as conquerors. They were there to colonize the Indian subcontinent. And they are known and well documented to have gone into the House of Lords and said, if we truly want to subjugate the Indian subcontinent, we have to dismantle their ancient healing systems and make them believe that everything that is foreign is better than their own. So as we can see, the takedown of Ayurveda was not because of a public health concern, but rather because it made the people powerful. When people are happy and healthy and they have free healthcare that they're growing and are knowledgeable about, they're very hard to conquer. So in order to weaken the people, all of our ancient Vedic knowledge systems were under attack. So this included yoga, it included meditation, included Ayurveda, and in fact, Ayurvedic healers, one of the ways they diagnosed people was by reading your pulse. So if you go to some of the master healers of Ayurveda, they can read your pulse, and it's actually uncanny. They'll be like, so it sounds like when you were 7, you must have fallen and hit your head on the left side, and that has caused this XYZ problems, and that's why, your liver is not functioning properly. Like, it's uncanny. And to the everyday person who is unaware, it actually seems like magic. But it's not magic. It's actually a very, very ancient system of healing that has been taught in schools generation after generation after generation. So, thousands of years into Ayurveda being on planet Earth, there are people who are just very deep knowledge keepers of this. So in order to stop this system, one of the things the British Empire actually did is that they would go around cutting off the thumbs of the Ayurvedic practitioners. And when they did that, they eliminated that practitioner's ability to do their most important diagnosis tool. So very, extensive, barbaric strategies that actually, if you think about it from a perspective of war strategy, it's actually really smart. Like if your goal is to go in and completely destroy a civilization, yep, this is the way to do it. Break down their education systems, take away the healers, make them believe that all of their own information is wrong and bad and worse, and this is how you conquer the people. So it didn't stop there. 1866, Ayurveda is banned, colleges are burned down, healers have their thumbs cut off. 1933, they come for cannabis. Sound familiar? It's kind of exactly when cannabis was taken down in America as well. And so, more than anything else, I believe, I view myself as a researcher, a storyteller. I have been trained in business and economics, so I love looking into how the money flows, and I pretty much believe that if you can follow the money, you can figure out why everything is happening on planet Earth in the times we live in. So, my training is on the business and economics side, and I've spent the better part of the last 15 years researching why all these things happen. Who stood to benefit from the takedown of these indigenous healing systems? Who stood to benefit from the takedown of cannabis? And what I realized is that it was a bunch of different industries, of course the healthcare industries, but also it had implications in agriculture. Hemp fiber was broadly used from the ancient times. And so who stands to benefit if hemp is outlawed? The cotton industry. Hemp fiber was also used to make paper. Who stands to benefit if we can't make hemp paper anymore? The folks with the tree, with the newspapers, who also owned vast forests where tree pulp was used to make the paper. So many different things, right? So these are the things I'm passionate about and what I'm excited to share with you all a little bit today. So that is kind of the background and the context of why we should care about Ayurveda. It is forbidden science that it was actually so strong that it threatened the might of the British Empire. And so if there was a healing system out there that was so powerful that the most corrupt and evil people on earth didn't want it to be around, doesn't it make it all that much more interesting? So that's what I feel, that's how I feel, and a huge reason why we called our company and our mission Veda Warrior. As I mentioned, Veda means science, it means knowledge. These are not religious principles, they're inspired by quantum physics, and the ethos of Veda Warrior is to stand up for the wisdom that should never have been wiped out, and that has been around on planet Earth for thousands of years and is a World Heritage, open source knowledge that should belong to all of us. It shouldn't just be about any one civilization, because all global civilizations participated in Ayurveda becoming a globally known concept, in the ancient times. So this is really a World Heritage system. Additionally, over the thousands of years that Ayurveda has been around, it has been influenced by cultures all over the world. In fact, one of the fascinating things I found in my research is that there are ancient Ayurveda universities in India where it was known that scholars from Israel and Rome and Greece and China and Tibet and all over the world, scholars would go there and there would be an exchange of knowledge. There were big libraries there. And so basically, I strongly believe that this is World Heritage knowledge that here we are, we're exploring it again. And it feels like a very exciting, historic time because for the first time ever, modern science has caught up to the principles of Ayurveda. So increasingly, we are seeing that scientific principles are actually proving Ayurveda right. And over the last many decades, we've seen all of these ancient sciences really becoming mainstream. Think about yoga, think about Ayurveda, think about superfoods such as turmeric and ashwagandha and bacopa and blue lotus and chamomile and lavender. All of the science behind all of these holistic healing tools is becoming more and more known. And now that modern science is catching up, we have an opportunity to kind of revisit the entire thing and think through, why don't we know more about this? Like, is there a reason, or is it that somebody actually proved all of this stuff wrong? And the more research I did, the more I realized that holistic healing was never proven wrong. It's simply that other systems came into place, and those systems had, more power and more control, and they were able to replace the system. But the nice thing about being America, where we all have free will and we can vote with our dollars, is we do have an opportunity to empower ourselves with knowledge. And that's what Veda Warrior is all about. We're so passionate about educating, about teaching, about having these dialogues that help us kind of rewrite the story on cannabis. And instead of saying, okay, this is reefer, it's a drug, let's start the story again and say, okay, where does this plant actually come from? Let's study it with the same rigor we would study any other agricultural crop, like soybeans or wheat or barley or corn, all of these other things. And let's understand where its uses are. For example, morphine, you can get addicted to morphine, and yet it still has a place in medicine because its uses are understood. We understand what levels create addiction versus not. What is the ideal dosage for pain relief versus, the strategy to actually get yourself addicted and harm yourself. These things are known because we're allowed to research it. We're allowed to have these open conversations. So that's what we're really excited about at Veda Warrior. Before I go on, just wanted to pause. Any questions in the audience? And please feel free to jump in with questions at any time you have. So a little bit about what I do at Veda Warrior and myself generally. So before I jump into the broader mission, to give you guys a little bit more of a background on myself. I'm an Indian American Jersey girl, so grew up here my whole life right outside of Princeton in South Brunswick, New Jersey. And I'm also 100% Indian. And my Indian family comes from northern India, from a state called Bihar, and we are multi-generational farmers. So actually on both sides of my family, my mom's side and my dad's side, has owned their farmland for at least 6 generations as far as we can tell, but possibly longer. And one of the things that has really guided my entire path of Veda Warrior is my love for my land there. And I actually just became the first woman to inherit my family land that we've had for 150 years. Girl power! Normally the main business there is they're grain farmers. So they farm 1 crop of rice and 1 crop of wheat per year. But the thing that really made me fall in love with that property is the fact that cannabis grows in the wild there. And so I just actually came back from there. I was just there last month. And the most fascinating part of being there is the fact that there's land-raised strains of cannabis everywhere you can look. In fact, my family is building a new house there, and out of the rubble, literally in a pile of bricks, because there was all this broken down stuff there, a lone cannabis plant was just growing there. And I was like, Mom, look! And then all of the local cousins were like, oh, that's just ganja, don't worry about it. It's illegal, but it just grows here. And I was like, what? This is insane. And I just love those experiences because I think it's so poetic that it doesn't matter what government bans this plant, it's part of nature. And so it's just the most, like, I just got, I was just giggling when I saw this because I was like, haha, they can't do anything about it because it's part of nature. And it actually is a metaphor for all of us, right? Like, we're allowed to be ourselves. Like, the government can't just tell you, or society can't just tell you that you're not allowed to exist. Like, you're already created by nature. The universe already said yes to you, and you're here, so it's done. And so I love that whole ethos, and it just inspires everything we do because we're like, this knowledge can't be erased. It's part of Mother Earth. And no matter what, who makes money off of what, this knowledge will exist. And a lot of cultures think that the truth will always show itself no matter what happens. And so I do feel that we're at this very, very interesting point in time in history where the truth is coming out. The truth is coming out of what happened to the indigenous healing systems. The truth is coming out about these major plant-based medicines such as cannabis, which were basically outlawed for private gain. And now it is, we know that from all the declassified documents. I was just reading an article about how the declassified documents from the Nixon era basically show pretty much black and white that this was all for private gain and not for a public health reason. So for that reason, at Veda Warrior, we are so passionate about having these discussions because having the dialogue again is what it takes to, first of all, bring back the ancient knowledge. But it's really not just about that. It's about taking it forward into the future. Because guess what? We just lost like 100 years of opportunity to research this plant. And so that's why I'm so excited to be working with Canopy Crossroad. Andy and I have had some very interesting discussions about the future of medicine. That's what we're passionate about. We're not just here to glorify the past. We're here to say, hey, we already have this World Heritage knowledge, which says a lot of things about cannabis. How about we start there, and then we base our research onto that and keep going. And one of the fascinating things about Ayurveda, given that it's so old, is that every generation of people throughout the world, I won't say just Indians, because throughout history we see that other cultures have absolutely contributed to it. And how do we know that? We see herbs in Ayurveda that are not native to India. For example, blue lotus originates from Egypt. You may have heard like the blue lotus mythology from the Nile. The ancient Egyptians thought it was a very sacred plant, just how we think about cannabis in India, and also had psychedelic properties. That is a native crop to Egypt, and yet it was known in the ancient times in India already, because it was traded there through just trade routes. So we know that Ayurveda is a World Heritage system. It did originate in ancient India, but everyone has pretty much contributed to it. And now it's time for all of us to bring it forward into the future as well, and democratize it by bringing in different healing systems from different places. One of the important forms of research I've done over the last 6 years is spending a lot of time with the Native Americans as well. And what makes me even more fascinated about Ayurveda than anything else is all the similarities I find among different ancient indigenous healing systems, that how could it possibly be that all these people were thinking about the same things? So a couple slides from now, I'll go into that a little bit more. But long story short, Veda Warrior is a collective of entrepreneurs, doctors, scientists, chefs, who are on a mission to bring back this ancient knowledge and also work with modern technology, modern science to bring it forward into the future. So that we can, the everyday American, can kind of take advantage of some of these healing tools. So before we keep going, I want to talk a little bit more, I want to zoom out a little bit from Ayurveda and talk about many of the different indigenous healing systems. So as I mentioned to all of you, throughout the ancient world, there were different systems of healing that popped up in different civilizations. And it is well known that there were certain centers of academic excellence in India where scholars were coming from all over the world. So I wanted to talk about some of the other alternative healing modalities that exist beyond Ayurveda. We just talked about Ayurveda a lot. There's also traditional Chinese medicine, which comes from China. There's, of course, both sides think that they came up with theirs first. Every single Indian will say that Ayurveda came first. Every single Chinese person will tell you TCM came first. We don't really know. It's all conjecture, but it's similar to Ayurveda. It has a lot of similar concepts of achieving balance and harmony. But of course, a lot of the herbs are different, and there are herbs that are native to China, which they have the expertise in. There's also Unani, which originated in Greece. but was actually perfected in the Middle East, in the Arab countries. And this, as I was mentioning earlier, Hippocrates was one of the leaders of Unani, and he talked about the 4 humors, which kind of are the energies that move through the body, which is exactly the same as what Ayurveda says. So it's really interesting to see the parallels between those. South India, there's another system of healing called Siddha medicine. It also uses herbs and even trace mineral amounts to make different medicines. Also as an energetic system of healing. There's homeopathy, which originated in Europe. They also use a lot of natural medicines and natural substances to stimulate healing. And then of course there's indigenous systems throughout the world. There are a lot of different civilizations who passed down information through oral tradition. They weren't exactly writing things down. So those knowledge systems are a little bit harder to track just because we can't reference ancient texts. But they are very powerful nonetheless. As I mentioned, I've spent a little bit of time with some Native American tribes, including the Cheyenne out west, and it just shocked me how much knowledge they had about how the body heals itself, our place in nature, and pretty much everything they were saying I could draw a parallel to in Ayurveda. The problem is it's hard to study their culture and their knowledge because it's not written down. Like, you have to go sit with an elder and they have to like you enough to share that knowledge with you, because if they don't like you, they're just going to be quiet and they're not going to tell you anyway. So it's a little bit harder to access that knowledge, but it's equally as important, and it actually does absolutely align with the principles of Ayurveda as well. So let's talk a little bit more about what Ayurveda actually is. So Ayurveda, as I mentioned, is an ancient system of healing. What makes it very cool is that it is a personalized system of healing. Now, imagine today's medicine. Like, for example, my father worked for Johnson & Johnson. When Johnson & Johnson goes to make Tylenol, they're not just making it for you directly. They're making it for the masses. It's mass-produced medicine, and on average, over time, it works for most people, but it wasn't custom designed for you. Ayurveda comes from the opposite direction. Ayurveda thinks that every single person is completely unique, but it does have principles for figuring out how to figure out your unique place within a broader system of energy. And most importantly, it's a proactive, personalized system of healing that, generally speaking, has, and I'm simplifying this a little bit, but generally speaking has 4 categories of tools that it uses in order to proactively help you create the most vibrant, positive health. And in Ayurveda, health isn't just getting by and just surviving. Health is showing up with joy and purpose in your life, being abundant, successful, happy, healthy, and having literally everything you ever wanted. Whether that's from a career perspective or a relationship perspective or your general lifestyle, all of these weigh into what Ayurveda believes health is. It's the general shine of your spirit in this world. So there's 4 tools that are used to optimize this. Number 1 is herbs. Number 2, diet. Number 3, exercise. This could include yoga, but it could include all types of movement. And then lifestyle is the catch-all phrase, but really some examples of lifestyle would be your daily routine. What time of the day are you waking up? What are you eating? What are your habits? What energy are you consuming? And what are you consuming in general? So of course consumption is what you're eating and drinking, but it's also all frequencies that you're consuming. So this could be what you listen to on the radio, the TV shows you watch, and importantly, the relationships you choose to keep in your life. And so are you surrounded by toxic people, or are you surrounded by positive people? This is part of the lifestyle tools that Ayurveda would say is an important factor in your health. Also, are you living a purpose-driven life? So imagine someone who's on a path where they just hate their job. That's probably going to lead them to stress and depression and anxiety and a whole bunch of other chronic conditions that lead with it. So of course that's part of your health. Of course it's part of your health what type of decisions you're making and whether those are aligned with the true desires of your heart. And in modern medicine, we don't think about that. We're like, oh, okay, everybody should be a doctor or everybody should be a lawyer. And we're not thinking about, is that path actually aligned for you? Are you going to be really, really miserable, or are you going to actually be happy doing that? And if you're miserable, then you're going to get stuck with a whole bunch of diseases. And that is something that Ayurveda understands and it talks about. One of the things that really made me fall in love with Ayurveda early in my journey was some of the statistics. I'm a numbers girl. I'm a former investment banker. I used to be a banker for hospitals and health systems, so I was very close to the numbers and the financial strategy of some of the biggest health systems in the world, or in the country, like Memorial Sloan Kettering, Hopkins, names like that. And so I really need to see numbers in order to feel truly impressed. So I wanted to throw out some of the numbers that got me interested in Ayurveda. So number one, 5,000 years of historical use. I mean, come on, like all the clinical research we have in modern times has maybe like 50 years of data, 60 years, if it's one of the best and longest standing studies. But this is a system that's been tracking the usage of these same exact herbs, the same exact formulations, the same exact principles for thousands of years. More importantly, it was in India. We have 1.4 billion people now. So like imagine the number of data points that you've captured over thousands of years, billions of people over thousands of years. So it's not that Veda warriors inventing anything we're doing. We're tapping into time-tested principles that have been around. They've withstood the test of time. If something doesn't work, you don't keep doing it for 5,000 years. We've already figured out the Xanax is not going to cure your depression. It's a great way to mask it in the short run, but if you take Xanax for 10 years, you're not going to be in a good place. You're going to probably have more depression than you ever did. You're probably going to be stuck with a bunch of side effects. So 5,000 years from now, in the year 7,025, no one's going to be taking Xanax, but Ayurveda will still be around. It's still going to be working. So I love that. The next thing I love is 11,000 diseases referenced. Like, what other system do you have where 11,000 diseases have been getting tracked for over 5,000 years? So it's encyclopedic, and it really makes me feel that these people are, they're the people who have written down and worked on Ayurveda are just prescriptive, nerdy people, and they've been writing things down for a really, really long time. And it really helps you feel a little bit more safe in following some of its guidelines, although I, of course, advise everyone to take all the right precautions to figure out whether something is right for you. And that's something that really is one of the most important principles of Ayurveda. There's nothing that is made for every single person. No matter who you are, you should be figuring out for you what is the right path to take. So I invite everyone to take an educated approach even when they are looking into the principles of Ayurveda. 2,000 different plant-based formulas. That is amazing. I was like, what? I can't believe this. So there's all of these different recipes for remedies already written down, and they've been, again, time-tested. 700 unique medicinal plants referenced. Absolutely, cannabis is one of them. Cannabis is a native crop to Asia, and specifically northern India, where my family comes from. The other exciting thing is we found over 300 references to cannabis used in medicinal preparations. So that really was what truly inspired me to start this company, because I was like, look, there are people on planet Earth who have been making medicines of cannabis for a long time. They had a long time to figure it out, like try all sorts of different combinations, gather the data on what it was doing to different people, and here are their findings. So while I don't believe that this needs zero extra work, I absolutely believe in modern medicine, modern science. We have to put this to the test. But I also feel that it's an excellent hypothesis and a place to start. And it's the inspiration that supported us to actually figure out, to design all of our formulations at Veda Warrior. Finally, there are 3 main unique body types in Ayurveda. You can be a combination of all of them. And so it's really infinite number of body types, but there's 3 major sectors that you can kind of fall into. And so I really liked that. I was like, I love that they have a framework with which I can kind of figure out where exactly I land. And then I can use all of these different systems of reference to actually like pinpoint where I am. I can learn some of the principles on my own. At Veda Warrior, we're building an AI chatbot, so if you ever want to ask basic questions about Ayurveda, please go to our website, vedawarrior.com, scroll to the bottom where it says AI Concierge, and you can ask it some of your basic questions. So that's a great place to get started. If you don't want to pay a practitioner, you don't want to do the hard work of reading stuff online or reading a book, just go and play around with it. It'll help you answer your basic questions. However, it's not there to be a diagnostic tool yet. So if you're truly looking to pinpoint your own personal place and your Ayurvedic body type, I would highly recommend working with a practitioner. And if that's something you're interested in, we can certainly help you make some introductions with our key folks. So I just mentioned that Ayurveda has 3 body types. And so I wanted to take a moment to talk a little bit about those. So these are the only Sanskrit words I'm going to make all of you learn. It can get to be a mouthful, but these are the 3 words. If you're going to learn anything, it's worth knowing. So in Ayurveda, there's known to be 3 main energies that work throughout the body. Everybody has all 3, but each person has a unique combination of the 3. And so, what makes it such that I'm allergic to bananas and Andy, you're not? It's the fact that there's these different energies flowing through our bodies. So those 3 energies are called Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And this diagram here it describes it a little bit. So to really understand the 3 body types, the main principle to understand is that, as I mentioned before, Ayurveda is a system of quantum physics. So these are quantum principles that help us understand all of reality at the level of energy. So we believe that before anything is here in this reality in physical form, there's an energetic quality to it before it actually manifests into physical form. If you want to understand all of the energies that exist in all of creation, that means like in our bodies, in this world, in the cosmos, they boil it down to 5 types of subtle energies. Metaphorically, they call these 5 energies the elements. This is not literal, it's a metaphoric word, but the 5 elements are fire, water, air, space, earth. And these are metaphorical ways to describe how these different 5 fundamental types of energies interact. So how do these 5 energies show up inside our bodies? These 5 energies are organized into 3 main metabolic, anabolic, catabolic functions within the body. And those are known as, the first one is Vata, which is a combination of the air and space energies that flow through your body. Vata governs everything related to movement. So imagine your joints, that is movement. Your lungs, breathing, it's moving, and then it's also helping you move through life, so that's Vata. Pitta is the mixture of fire and water energy. So Pitta rules things like digestion. It rules your will, your sense of ambition, your determination. You're just basically, you're fire to get anything done. And that includes both as a personality trait, and it also includes the fire in your digestive system that helps you break down matter and into its parts so that the body can use it. And finally, there's Kapha. Kapha is a mixture of earth and water energy, and it basically creates all the stability and structure in your life. So it has to do with your skeletal system. It also has to do with mucus in your body, and a whole number of other things. So as I mentioned, each person has a unique combination of these different energies. So if you were to go take a quiz online to figure out what your dosha is, so these energies, as I was mentioning, they're called doshas, D-O-S-H-A. And so there's all sorts of different Ayurveda dosha quizzes online where you can answer 20 questions and it'll tell you. So it might tell you that you're Vata or you're Pitta or you're Kapha. And once you understand your type, you can basically then get a personalized set of recommendations as to herbs that are good for you, diets that are good for you, exercises that are good for you, and lifestyles that are good for you. So, on the previous slide, we had the four different sectors of Ayurveda: herbs, diet, movement, lifestyle. Once you have your particular dosha, you understand your body type, it'll then give you those 4 categories in a personalized way, in a way that helps you achieve success from a health perspective in the optimal way. And again, these recommendations take into account mind, body, spirit, wellness. So it might be, some of the recommendations might be that your job is really aggravating you, and you have to find a different job. So that's something that one of my Ayurvedic practitioners told me. I'm the fire type, if you can't tell already. So what this means is, very outgoing personality, I can be a bull in a china shop when I need to be. But when out of balance, people with a fire type, first of all, they can have skin problems. They could have digestion problems. As I mentioned, the Pitta fire energy rules digestion. And I was an investment banker. And so the energy around me on working on a trading floor was overly aggravating my fire energy, because everybody around me, we were only 20% women. So there's a lot of masculine energy. Everybody was being very fiery and aggressive. And me, having a natural fire type, it was really stressing me out a lot more than somebody else who had a different body type. And so I remember my Ayurvedic practitioner just saying, you're never gonna have good skin until you get a different job. I was like, what do you mean? I have to do this. And she's like, then you will always have bad skin. And it's really because of her that I started meditating 8 years ago. And it was 100% because of a vanity reason, because I was having all these skin problems because I was really, really stressed out and nothing else was working. And she gave me that one tip. I started meditating and it shifted my whole life actually. I have a different job now, my skin's a lot better. And so that's just an anecdote of how some of these principles could really help you get onto a track that you feel excited to wake up every morning. In Ayurveda, that's health. It's not just surviving. It's not just being like, okay, I'm gonna get through the day. Like, our standards have really dropped as a civilization. We're okay with just getting by. Like, most of us are tired all the time. Most of us have chronic conditions, and we're just going through the motions. And so what Ayurveda teaches us is that there's more to life than that. You can absolutely have a life that's prosperous and awesome, and that, you know, that makes you happy every day. But you might have to, you know, make some big changes. And so when you find your dosha type and you get those recommendations, you know, it's really a question of whether or not you're willing to take those up. Maybe you don't want to get a new job. Maybe you're happy with the money you're making at the current job. Maybe you're not going to make that change. But at least these principles will help you understand then why you're so miserable. You're going to understand, hey, my body type naturally means that I'm never going to be happy in this type of job. And I can choose to suffer through it, or not, you know? And so I feel that it's a very liberating sense of wisdom, once you understand. I'll stop again for a second and just ask if there's any questions in the audience. No? All right, then I'm gonna keep going. Okay, so this is my favorite thing to talk about. So as I mentioned, I view myself as a storyteller. I think that it is so important to keep the ancient stories alive of cannabis, because for thousands of years, so much world knowledge is passed down through stories in every single culture. And so on the surface level, it looks like it's some fantastical children's story with gods and demons and all this stuff. But really, we have to read between the lines, and we have to realize that the people who came up with these stories were actually very complex, very intelligent. They were astronomers, they were mathematicians, they were healers. So these are not just random stories. There's meaning within it. So I wanted to share with you all the ancient origin story of cannabis so that we can understand where this plant actually comes from, and some of the dialogues and the stories and the mythology that have shaped its use throughout human civilization. So the earliest story we can find of cannabis in Ayurveda comes from a story called the Churning of the Milky Ocean. And so the Churning of the Milky Ocean is a story of a time on planet Earth where this was in a distant path. There were two different factions of what we're calling the gods and what we're calling the demons. They were both, you know, alive beings that were on planet Earth. One might say that some were good and some were evil. So we'll call them gods and demons. And they had been warring with each other for lifetimes and lifetimes. And they had both reached a point where a lot of their people had died. Both sides had suffered heavy casualties. And their hearts were filled with despair. They're like, what do we do? We're just killing each other off. There's no clear end in sight. We don't know how to defeat each other, and all we're doing is just losing our best people. So in order to mediate or to broker a ceasefire or just figure out what to do next, the side that we're going to call the gods went to one of the creator gods in the Vedic pantheon known as Brahma. He's known as the creator. And they went to him and they said, what do? We really need to figure out how to get ourselves out of this situation, because we can't do this anymore. We can't keep fighting this war. We have nothing left. Our resources are depleted and we're done. So they said, we need the elixir of immortality and you need to help us get it. So Brahma says, okay, I'll help you get the elixir of immortality, but it's not going to be easy. And so you guys are going to have to figure out how to do this. So what Brahma said is that he wasn't just going to give them the elixir of immortality. The gods were going to have to work together with the demons and work together to basically churn the cosmic ocean. And so literally in the story, what they do is they're churning the ocean as one would churn milk to make cream or butter. But really, we believe this is a metaphor for the Milky Way galaxy, and it's a broader creation story. So as you can see in this picture, what they did is they yanked out one of the biggest mountains. It was called Mount Mandara, and they dropped it in the middle of the ocean, and they wrapped this magical serpent being, his name is Vasuki, around the mountain, and then they started both pulling each side to churn the cosmic ocean. So imagine like in the olden days where they would like churn milk, and they would have a pole that had like different spokes, and it would have like the cream rises to the crop. That's where that phrase comes from. So that's the action that they were doing. And Brahma told them that if you churn the cosmic ocean, then eventually many things will come out. And at first, he told them the first thing that will come out is a terrible poison. But don't worry about it. You guys have all these powers. You'll deal with it. But eventually, the elixir of immortality will come out. So they start churning the cosmic ocean in order to get the elixir of immortality. And the first things that comes out is a poison so deadly that it threatens to kill all of creation. And both the gods and the demons were like, what? Like, we cannot deal with this. Like, we have no tools. Everything we know how to do isn't working. We're all gonna die. Oh my God, like, this sucks. And so, in another moment of despair, they were already in despair to begin with, and now they're even more disheartened. They're like, great, like, now we're really gonna die. So, in their moment of despair, they started praying to Shiva. Shiva in the modern times is known as one of the gods of cannabis. So, it's awesome that he comes in at this part of the story. So, all of these people are praying to Shiva, and Shiva's like, he turns to his wife and he's like, okay, look, all these people are praying for me, and I gotta help them. Like, look at how much devotion they have in their hearts. Like, what am I gonna do? Just leave them? And the wife looks at him, who's the divine mother. She's the goddess. Her name is Parvati. So she looks at him and she said, okay, you should go. And so he goes, and in order to save everyone from this deadly poison, he drinks all of the poison. And to this day, Shiva is known as the blue-throated one. And it's because he drank this poison, but he didn't swallow it. He just kind of like held it in his throat. So the poison was threatening to kill him. His throat was turning all blue. And Shiva is one of the most powerful gods in the entire Vedic pantheon. He's Shiva the destroyer. He's basically like this amazing figure of like divine masculine, like strength. He's a general, he's a warrior. He's also a beautiful lover, so he's often shown at, with his wife Parvati, who's a consort. But he has an epic amount of power. So the fact that Shiva didn't know what to do when this poison was in his throat shocked everyone. They're like, what are we gonna do? Shiva himself is about to die. So then what happens? His wife, Parvati, is like, oh no, my husband's about to die. This sucks. Like, that's my beloved. I have to figure out how to heal him. So she goes within and she conjures the most powerful plants in all of creation. And she has the magical power in order to do that. And she conjures a whole bunch of things. And which one does she specifically select but the cannabis plant? She takes the cannabis plant, she makes a paste out of the leaves, and then she makes it into a drink with milk, and she pours it into Shiva's throat, and the therapeutic compounds of the cannabis plant saved Shiva from this deadly poison. And so, moral of the story is, in this moment when all of humanity and all of creation was being threatened, when a goddess who had all the powers had the power to conjure any plant she wanted, she hand-selected cannabis to be the one that heals. And so today, how do we find this in written reference? The fourth most important Vedic text, known as the Ayurveda, calls cannabis one of the 5 most important plants on planet Earth. And the reason is it can be used for medicine, it can be used for fiber, it can be used for spiritual knowledge and attainment, and it can also be used for food. You can eat the hemp seeds. And so it's no coincidence that a culture with this much history of science, healing, architecture, math, astronomy thinks of cannabis as one of the 5 most important plants on planet Earth. So for this reason, it's so important for me to be a storyteller, because these kinds of tidbits otherwise get lost.
So what's the connection between Shiva and third eye and the third eye?
So Shiva is known as the inventor of yoga. So they call him the Adi Yogi, meaning like he's the first yogi. So in yoga philosophy, what you'll realize is that they believe that Shiva is the inventor of yoga, and then he had there are 7 different sages that he imparted that knowledge to back in the ancient times. And those guys then propagated the science of yoga throughout time. So we don't actually know how old yoga is, because it's linked back to all of these creation myths. And so the Shiva is connected with the third eye because the entire yoga and meditation philosophy is an act of spiritual attainment and awareness. And the third eye symbolizes your spiritual sight. So it symbolizes your ability to see beyond this plane and understand more about your soul and your spirit. And that's exactly what Shiva was a teacher of. And so that's why the gods and the demons invoked him, because he was known to be the ultimate teacher. The ultimate teacher of the sciences, which were basically a pathway to spiritual enlightenment, but you can't really attain spiritual enlightenment unless your body's healthy. And so therefore yoga and Ayurveda are necessary precursors to achieving enlightenment, because if your body is very low frequency, you're eating terrible food, you simply won't be able to activate your Kundalini energy. That's what's taught in yoga philosophy. So that's why third eye, Shiva, it's like very closely connected. And people will invoke that energy in order, if you're on a path of spiritual enlightenment, then you invoke that whole lineage. All right, so we talked about this. I'm gonna breeze through this slide. These are some of the things I already talked about. You know, one of the 5 most important plants on earth, 300 references. Let's talk about how cannabis can help you in your daily wellness according to Ayurveda. So at Veda Warrior, we are very focused on presenting an authentic expression of cannabis that aligns with the research that we've done. So in addition to my own work, we have a Department of Science and Research. We have about six scientists, doctors, healers on that commission. We have a biochemist, we have a pharmaceutical drug development expert, we have 2 physicians, and we also have the exact opposite, which is our traditional healers, organic farmers, people who are seeing the plant in the wild. And so we try to pull in knowledge from all of these different systems, because that's what's required in order to really define the future. And so the information that we found, which is a combination of ancient texts and references all the way to medieval times, but also there are Ayurvedic doctors today in India doing research on cannabis, and we spent a lot of time with them trying to understand what they were doing. So according to Ayurveda, the top 5 categories where cannabis can be used, and specifically we see a lot of examples of them mixing it with other herbs in order to get specific use cases. So stress, anxiety, depression, so your mental health category, that makes sense. Chronic pain and inflammation, whether that's joint pain or menstrual cramp pain or muscle pain, inflammation of any sort. Sleep is a known use. Insomnia, those of us who have restless sleep. Digestion related matters, so either you have a low appetite or you're having poor digestion, there's cannabis-based remedies for that. And then finally, as an aphrodisiac for sexual energy and increasing your libido. And so one of the key things that we talk about is what if you're someone who is exploring alternatives to pharmaceuticals? So of course the first thing is you have to talk to your doctor, and nothing we're saying today is meant to cure, treat, or diagnose any disease. I have to say my little disclaimer. But what we found, someone asked me earlier when we started Veda Warrior, I launched this business in 2018. We first started with a mental health supplement with CBD, which actually launched right after COVID started. So it was a time where people were very, very stressed out. I personally did over 200 different customer interviews. Everybody was at home, so we were all doing Zoom calls anyway. And what we learned is that 77% of our customers were trying to get off of prescription drugs. So nobody was thinking, should I take a prescription drug or should I take Ayurveda? 77% of our customers were saying, I've already been taking Xanax for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. I've already been taking Lexapro, Klonopin, all these Zoloft, all these different things. And I've already found that it doesn't work for me because of the side effects. And the side effects were everybody's key concern. Like everybody was having random things go wrong with them. One lady said she gained 40 pounds. Someone else said that their digestion was really, really bad after starting their Xanax medications. So what we learned is that there are Americans out there who've already tried the pharmaceutical route. It's not that we're actually disrupting it, but they've self-determined that they don't want to do that anymore because of the side effects. And the story that I kept hearing again and again and again is that if you're someone who doesn't want to take pharmaceuticals anymore, 8 times out of 10, your doctor is just going to up your dose or give you a different pharmaceutical drug. And that's what we kept hearing again and again. They were like, I did everything that my doctor asked me to do. They put me on this, I took it. They put me on that, I took it. Nothing is working. So what I realized is that all these people were at a point of complete despair in their health routine. And then when they thought that there was nothing to help them, they were like, fine, I'll try this Ayurveda stuff. I don't know what it is, but okay, I've tried everything else, so what do I have to lose? So that's what I noticed. I was like, the people who actually were resonating with our wellness products the most, they had one thing in common, this feeling of despair because they had tried everything pharmaceuticals had to offer and it wasn't working for them. And so then Ayurveda's personalized tools can really help you Maybe you're taking a pharmaceutical drug that Ayurveda has some knowledge on why it's not working for you. And so we always encourage everyone, again, to take a very thoughtful, educated approach. And I think the best way, if you really want to deep dive into any of these health issues, is to work with an Ayurvedic practitioner. I'm very involved in the policy work on that because, you know, as practitioners go, you want to make sure it's a good practitioner. There's also people who study like a weekend course in Ayurveda and then they'll start calling themselves a practitioner. So people like me really don't like that because it gives everything a bad name. And also then that could be dangerous in its own right. There's nothing more dangerous than half-baked knowledge. So if you think you're an expert and you're not, like that could be bad. But if anyone is seeking a recommendation, please let us know. We have a number of different practitioners that we work with that I always send people to if they have specific questions or want to do a deep dive with. All right, so I'll just end with telling you guys a little bit about what we're doing at Veda Warriors. So as I mentioned, we've done all this research. We found, you know, the top 5 categories that we think Ayurveda has a good place, and we did our best to create products that really stand up to the integrity of Ayurveda. So we're not just here to make a cheap product and call it a day. Like, I'm here representing this ancient wisdom. If I do a bad job, I feel that that is a direct disrespect to all of the work that has been done over thousands of years by people all over the world. As I mentioned, I really don't believe this is just invented by Indians. People, thought leaders from everywhere have contributed to this. So I definitely feel this deep feeling of obligation to do the right thing. So what does that mean for me in terms of product philosophy? It starts with our ingredients. So the first set of products that we launched are cooking oils. We found that in Ayurveda, one of the most traditional ways to consume cannabis was actually oils infused into ghee butter. Ghee butter is a clarified butter, in case anyone is not familiar. It's a shelf-stable premium butter that is known for its medicinal properties in Ayurveda and in other traditions for thousands of years. So it reduces inflammation, it improves digestion, and in the text it said that it increases bioavailability of whatever herbs are infused into it, whether it's cannabis or anything else. So anecdotally, I will say that I'm not making any claims on onset time, but anecdotally, I will say that when I personally consume our cannabis-infused butter, I feel that I can feel the effects pretty quickly. And I was hearing this from a number of people, so I was starting to ask our advisors, hey, why do you think this is? Because we did not use any chemicals that optimize the onset time. These days, there are different ways that you can make something, you can experience it faster. We didn't like it because we didn't like the ingredients. So I asked my advisors, like, why do you think everyone's saying this? And they said, well, ghee butter is known to increase bioavailability in Ayurveda, so that same principle is likely at work here. So the 3 products we currently have, which you can get at Canopy Crossroad here in Red Bank, are our cannabis-infused butter. We have an olive oil and a coconut oil. Each of these products has exactly 2 ingredients. So it's the cannabis oil, the extract, and the base oil, and that's it. We have no chemicals, no preservatives, and all 3 are made with organic oils that I have personally sourced. That's something that I actually am very passionate about. I love sourcing my own ingredients. I love traveling the world, finding the farmers myself. I just want to know everything. I'm just like such a nerd about every single aspect. And so the ghee butter is actually locally produced in New Jersey. It's made by a gentleman who's an Indian guy who immigrated to New Jersey in the 80s, and his family has been ghee makers for 5 generations. That's all he knows. And so he sources the milk from Pennsylvania, makes the ghee butter in New Jersey. It's USDA certified organic. Our olive oil comes from a family-owned estate in Greece. It is a single source olive oil. It's very rare to get olive oil that's only from one exact strain of olives, because usually they mix up a whole bunch of them to reduce costs. We specifically chose Koroneki olive oil because it's the highest in polyphenols, which are good for heart health, and have that in our olive oil. And then finally we have organic cold-pressed extra virgin coconut oil as well. And so our ghee butter and coconut oil can also be used topically for various sorts of pain. I would recommend for muscle pain the coconut oil, and for joint-related pain and suffering, I would use the ghee butter. So these are already available. And then in a couple of months, we're also going to be launching a series of gummies for joint care, for menstrual cramps. That's going to be a microdosed gummy with only 2.5 milligrams of cannabis, of THC. We did extensive focus groups with women, and we heard that if they're buying a menstrual cramps product, they're not trying to get high, they just are seeking the pain relief. So it's a medley of 7 different womb care herbs combined with cannabis. We also have aphrodisiacs, sleep, focus, and digestion products coming out. Our philosophy, I talked a little bit about this already, so I'll skip through that. And yeah, I think I will just end with saying thank you so much for this opportunity. I had such an amazing time chatting with you guys. I love these like intimate settings more than anything because I feel like, you know, we have an opportunity to have these deep discussions. Available for any questions you want to ask me, and then also we are doing a 20% off discount for anyone who wants that discount on their Veda Warrior products. All you have to do is take a picture of the slide and show it to the folks at the store, and you will get that discount. And if you want to, this QR code will take you to our website, vedawarrior.com. Also, please follow us on Instagram at Veda Warrior. We're doing different educational events like this, or yoga classes, medication classes, all over the state, and we would love to continue the discussion with you guys and you know, just continue all the learning. So thanks again to all of you for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you today.